people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
To the mother relay, we're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. What appears to be Floyd Mayweather's response to Gervonta Davis's accusations that Floyd has fallen on hard times, he's in deep with the Sharks in Dubai, and now they won't let him leave. To that, Floyd Mayweather says, we've always known that Gervonta had sugar in his gas tank.
That he's a homosexual?
Even if he is. Two things can be true at the same time. It's entirely possible that Gervonta Davis's sexual orientation leaves him so inclined to stick things in his ass. Though even if he does, that doesn't refute the claim that Floyd Mayweather is currently in debt to someone or someone's out there in Dubai, and as a result of that, he's being held hostage. In a manner of speaking, he's not allowed to leave.
You didn't deny that.
All he did was highlight Gervonta Davis's latent homosexual tendencies that by now we're all aware of, that Gervonta may very well have sugar in his gas tank. You know, he does wear purses, he does paint his nails.
Has an affinity for doing TikTok dances the same way a teenage schoolgirl would.
One of these not-so-young guys. Not so young because Gervonta Davis is very close to 30, still sagging his pants the way a prison inmate would to signal to the other inmates to make a deposit in his mailbox. There is enough anecdotal evidence of Gervonta Davis's sexual orientation that it'll come as a surprise to no one that he's a closet case, but him being a closet case doesn't refute the claim that Floyd's fallen on hard times.
It doesn't disprove it.
Can only deduce that Floyd said this because maybe he thought it would embarrass Gervonta Davis, because he wants to be the tough guy, the tough street kid. Letting Adrian Broner stretch the walls of his asshole.
Yes.
Gervonta responded to this by saying, now that he posted that, tell him to go live where he's at.
Because he maintains that no matter what Floyd is saying, he's trapped in Dubai. He can't leave.
Now, I'll fuck around and knock Floyd out when I see him, and I'll care about going back to jail. He's such a bitch. He doesn't allow his security to carry guns.
You know, a pay-per-view between those two would do very well.
Twitter user that goes by the name Jason Lee says, I'm a huge fan of Gervonta Davis, and he will always have an open door to Hollywood Unlocked. I just seen his post that Floyd Mayweather paid us to post negative things about him. That never happened, and I would never allow anyone to pay to attack someone. To which Gervonta Davis responded, your ass is a lie, and you know it. You and him fucking gotta be. I have screenshots of it. And the guy backtracked after I cursed him out about it.
What, Floyd paid this guy to say negative things about Gervonta?
Floyd Mayweather, who took to his own social media and uploaded an image, what appears to be a fan-made fight poster of Gervonta Davis against Shakur Stevenson, a fight that we've often talked about here on the channel, seemingly doing now what he did years ago when it came to Vasyl Lomachenko, seemingly threatening Gervonta Davis.
How?
Do you remember years ago, they were going back and forth, they were going through some issues, and it was like Floyd was threatening Gervonta Davis by suggesting that maybe they will make that Vasyl Lomachenko fight. Here, he seems to be doing the same thing. He says, this should be the fight.
What's even more intriguing
is if you zoom in on the fight poster, he's crossed out the Amazon Prime logo and the Gervonta Davis Promotions logo. What is it that Floyd was trying to say? That beyond Gervonta Davis's next fight, the PBC on Amazon deal is done? And you think about how many of the PBC's former fighters have floated away to different platforms and different promotional outfits, and how many of them are all tied up in that August 3rd show backed by Turkey Al-Sheikh. You do have to wonder, what do they have to work with for their own schedule, their own cards they plan on doing, or is it that they don't plan on doing very many cards?
Which is why they were willing to outsource that many of their fighters, because they weren't going to use them anyway.
Is that the rationale? I'm not completely sure. In any event, Floyd Mayweather made the suggestion that Gervonta should fight Shakur Stevenson, to which Gervonta replied, like I said before, I have a 6 to 7 fight deal, and that little bitch-ass house kid from Newark is in it.
How could he be a part of your deal if he's with Top Rank and you're with who?
I remember right before the Rolly Romero fight, Gervonta said that would be his final fight under his existing Mayweather Promotions deal. Now, he's fought 2 times since then.
If he struck some kind of deal after the Rolly Romero fight, who'd he strike a deal with? Who does he have a 6 to 7 fight deal with?
Presumably Al Heyman.
And how could Shakur Stevenson be a part of that deal when Shakur isn't signed to Al Heyman? He's signed to Bob Arum.
Gervonta, in light of this, made several other posts taking shots, open shots at Shakur Stevenson. Nothing to really spend a whole lot of time on.
He's taking shots at Shakur. He's taking shots at Floyd. He's taking shots at Floyd's new protege, Kermel Motion.
Seemingly bears some resemblance to Gervonta Davis.
He does kind of look like him.
Curdled Motor posted an image of himself and Floyd Mayweather in training and all that stuff, saying, "Best team in boxing," to which Gervonta Davis responded, "Your ass won't be on the June 15th card either." Whatever. I did happen to notice that Kermel's first 2 pro bouts, they weren't actually part of a card per se. His first 2 fights took place after the main event, and I thought that curious.
If they're building this kid up, why would they put his fights after the main event, after the audience has already left?
He made his pro debut on the undercard of Canelo versus Charlo. Then he had his second fight on the undercard of Benavidez versus Andrade, and I think it was both of those fights where his fight didn't take place until after the main event.
Why?
Gervonta said, "Floyd is trying to get his ass out of it. I'm not building that guy up. I'll see him very soon. On my mama, why you didn't go get back for your daughter, Floyd?" Twitter user that goes by the name Don Masliano said, "I guess it's Gervonta versus everybody," to which Gervonta responded, "That's how I like it. That money is looking funny, like that fake-ass hair on his head and his face." He must be talking about Floyd's hair transplant.
Does look a bit haphazard.
I mean, he spent his prime years with a shaven, bald head, clean shaven, so that in his old age he can slap a rug on it, try to convince us that he grew it himself.
Midlife crisis much?
All fuckery aside, as entertaining as all of this may seem to the casual observer, I've been observing this pattern between Gervonta and Floyd for years now, and I said as much on my own X account that whenever Gervonta has a fight on schedule, whenever he has a fight to sell, like clockwork, some kind of drama with Floyd starts up. It's almost as if it's a manufactured drama intended to draw attention to Gervonta and away from whatever else is happening.
And I'm not alone.
Former world champion Ishe Smith said as much. He said, "Unlike the past beefs, which I knew were real because of the inside scoops, this one just doesn't seem authentic. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seems staged." And it might be. The Gervonta Davis versus Frank Martin fight, given the schedule of fights from now until August, is the last thing on anybody's mind.
So maybe this is their way of trying to sell it?
To bring Gervonta Davis to the forefront of the conversation in the boxing world? I don't know. On one end, Ishe says that some of those beefs that we've seen in the past, some of those blowouts, they were real.
Some of them.
But on the other end, this does seem contrived. The timing of it all. That as soon as Gervonta Davis has a fight to sell, that's as soon as the Mayweather drama starts up. I've read this book before.
So it's not true that Floyd is broke?
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I mean, 2 things can be true at the same time. God only knows that 50 Cent said that Floyd Mayweather had ran through all his money years before any of this started.
The rumor that Floyd ran through all his money didn't start with Gervonta.
If this drama is manufactured, that doesn't necessarily render that bit of it untrue. It might be. Or it might be that this drama isn't manufactured and it's genuine. Tank and Floyd have a rough history, and this is just another chapter in that same book. Here's the bottom line to the consumer. Here's the bottom line to the fight fan.
What?
Whether all of this is manufactured or not, it doesn't lend itself to the Frank Martin fight's appeal. It doesn't make it any more intriguing, any more appealing. It does nothing for that fight's market value, because there are so many other great fights on the calendar that this one just kind of falls into the background.
No matter what.
So if all of this is an effort to bring attention to that show, or it isn't, it doesn't matter anyway.
The baseline for a Gervonta Davis fight has been at or around 200,000 buys, and the only time we saw an uptick was with Ryan.
But now that that's all said and done, you may not do those numbers with a Frank Martin. You might not. The numbers for your next fight might be a far cry from the numbers for your last fight.
And arguing with Floyd, as much as you're arguing with Floyd, it doesn't change that.
Because it's not Floyd you're fighting next, it's Frank Martin.
Comprendo, friendo.
As it pertains to this weekend's Golden Boy Promotion show, Virgil Ortiz weighed in at about 155.6 pounds. Thomas Dulorme weighed in at 154.6, what appears to be a catch weight that, since moving up in weight, since leaving the welterweight division and seemingly going up to junior middle, he's actually been boxing at middle. Should we be concerned?
I mean, we know that Virgil Ortiz was sidelined for a while due to a rhabdomyolysis flare-up that, he really can't push himself and deplete himself but so much because it could cause that condition to flare up. So is the reason that he hasn't actually been making 154 pounds. He hasn't been making junior middleweight. He didn't make it earlier this year, and he's not making it now for this weekend's fight. Should we be worried?
I don't know.
The word on the street from those in the loop is that Fresno is pulling up for this show. They keep opening up sections. Mr. Pull Up, as it were, says he's getting word that they're expecting approximately 11,000 people to show up at the Save Mart Center, priced to sell. This is a doubleheader.
You've got Virgil Ortiz versus Thomas Dulorme and Jose Ramirez versus Francis Bartholomew.
Virgil Ortiz is from Grand Prairie, Texas, whereas Jose Ramirez, he's the one from California. He's always had a large cult following in that part of the country, and they appear to be showing up and showing out, not just for him, but for the show. It's encouraging.
Because this ain't the most ambitious matchmaking we've ever seen.
Francis Bartholomew, that's a guy, he's getting up there in age. He's long in the tooth, and that's who Jose is fighting. You think about Thomas Dulorme. I remember Thomas Dulorme being stopped in a single round by Jaron Ennis. I believe it was Jaron Ennis. The same thing could happen tomorrow with Virgil Ortiz, who's a big, young, strong guy. Well-schooled, mid-range fighter, combination puncher. The area of concern, I think, is that Virgil hasn't actually made junior middleweight yet, but he's supposed to be making it for the Tszyu fight, that if he takes care of business tomorrow, and most people are expecting him to, he's moving right into that Tszyu fight for what is WBA interim status, to crown a WBA mandatory challenger for the winner of Crawford versus Madrimov.
Right?
In order to reap that reward, Virgil will have to make 154 pounds, and he hasn't made it yet. He didn't make it earlier this year. He's not making it here and now. Is he not making it because he can't make it because they're treading lightly and they don't want to push him physically?
I'll tell you something, that if anything happens to Virgil Ortiz en route to this fight, I wouldn't mind seeing Tszyu take on Bakram Murtazaliev. They should give that guy a call.
No, it doesn't seem at all orthodox to have a champion in your back pocket as a plan B, a contingency. But given that Virgil hasn't actually made junior middleweight, and that if he pushes himself trying to, that rhabdomyolysis might flare up, they need to have somebody on standby.
He lost over a year due to that thing.
Virgil Ortiz did. Ortiz versus Tszyu is one of the more intriguing fights on that entire August show, but this is something to keep in mind, that he didn't actually make 154, and he's going to have to.
For Tszyu.
Unless he is so instructed to blow the weight like Ryan did last weekend. Now, as it pertains to that August show that I just mentioned, the main event, Crawford versus Madrimov, and how veteran trainer Teddy Atlas warned of inactivity, that Terence Crawford had to keep an eye on Father Time. These comments were made before that fight was officially announced, but the warning is still relevant, because the night of, Terence will not have fought in roughly over a year's time.
Just a little over a year. The fight with Spence was in late July of last year. This fight is in August of this one.
Crawford and his team had said Boots is not on their radar. Former 140-pound champion Chris Algieri said it wasn't the type of fight that they were looking for. They're looking for big money. Let's be honest, we're at a stage of Terence Crawford's career where he's done it all. This is the twilight of his career. He's looking to maximize his earnings and maximize his legendary status. status. At this point, Terence Crawford is making money moves, and I'm not sure Jaron Ennis is the kind of money that's going to entice him to stay at 147, and it isn't. Jaron Ennis's immediate plans involve unifying the welterweight division. Terence is up there at junior middle.
Some are saying that if Terence is so focused on maximizing his earnings, why is he fighting a lesser-known fighter than Jaron Ennis? Well, look at who's paying him, dickhead. Look at who's paying for the show. Turkey Al-Sheikh. Do you think they're giving Terence peanuts on a dollar? Obviously not. So that observation is a skewed one, an obtuse one, because in all likelihood, he stands to make very good money with Madrimov, not because of Madrimov, but because of who's paying for the show. He wins with everybody in that weight class right now, said Teddy Atlas. He carries his power. What's so special is what's inside Terence Crawford. He doesn't believe you can beat him. He's a special guy. And his timing is in a different dimension. He sees things other people don't see. He's so calm. Just a twitch of your muscle. You're just starting to see that. And that's why he's always ahead of you. Chris Algieri added that Terence has so many opportunities at a higher weight class, to which Teddy Atlas added, and there's no Godzilla up there at 154. Crawford can move up there and win. The thing I'd be worried about is the one enemy who's undefeated against everybody, no matter what. And that's Father Time. Crawford is in his mid-30s. He's 36 going on 37. The night of, he will not have fought in a year's time. He's facing a bigger, younger, strong fighter at a higher weight. The situation is negotiable for Terence because in spite of Israel being a full-fledged 154-pounder, he's not dramatically bigger. He's not towering over Terence. That in terms of the tail of the tape, they are eye level to each other. He's naturally bigger, but not necessarily taller or longer. Teddy Atlas believes that Terence's power will carry from 147 up to 154, and I happen to agree with him because it won't be as physically taxing. He's not boiling all the way down to 147 anymore. He might feel fresher and more energized at junior middle. At 154. And power, as they say, power is the last thing to go, so there's reason enough to believe that Terence will carry power from 147 up to 154. It's his timing, his reflexes, and his speed. His reaction time that is most concerning. Not just because of his age, not just because he's in his mid-30s, but because he hasn't fought in a year. But if people, in spite of these circumstances, still have confidence that Terence will be able to handle this assignment, is because he's no ordinary fighter, no ordinary champion or welterweight. It's because he takes care of himself in between fights. In between fights, where do you see him? In the gym. It's where you see him. And even though he's facing a very strong young guy who can move and punch, a guy with a great amateur background in terms of the pro ranks, he's still green enough that Terence can exploit that. It evens things out. Terence might be naturally smaller and some years older, but he's a lot more seasoned than Israel Madrimov. Battle tested. Which balances things out, that maybe Israel has the edge in power, maybe, and the edge in size, but Terence has the edge in experience and a lot of other areas. Thus, I still have confidence in him that he'll be able to take care of business and see himself crowned a 4-division champion. I'm looking forward to it.